it is not at all necessary for the average student wishing to cause some ailment or to alter some condition or habit in your life to master the trance deepening methods described in this section. I would emphasize that beneficial results are dependent on regular suggestion sessions and frequent and realistic revisions of these suggestions. The methods in this section are primarily for students of psychological techniques, research, extrasensory perception, and meditational techniques. But the average person who is not a student, who becomes curious, may wish to experiment with these techniques. The main course which prevent trance induction or the deepening of trances are trying too hard and becoming over anxious, employing induction methods which are not suitable to you because your unconscious mind does not approve of the suggestions you wish to make, because unthinkingly you may have been making negative suggestions about your progress or some form of unconscious resistance. The majority of these resistances can be overcome by following the advice given in this course. In it there is a great deal of information and instruction, but some listeners and students may have to experiment with the various methods of trance induction described, perhaps making some alterations or modifications, or combining some of the different methods to find one which is suited to your individual circumstances and requirements. When you experience only a slight feeling of detachment during practice, this is the time to make suggestions to yourself. Your trance, however slight, will become deeper by using it, that is, by repeating it and using positive suggestions. Do not say to yourself, "This is not what I expected. This is not deep enough. I want a deep trance." Do not make it a condition. You must go into a deep trance before you begin suggestions. Remember that in any case, the trance itself is only a means to an end. And also remember that the majority of cures achieved by hypnotism are effected in medium and light trances. If you make it a definite condition that you must go into a deep trance, it means you are, in effect, hypnotizing yourself with the idea, "I cannot get benefit until I go into a deep trance." This is untrue, and there is no point to misleading yourself. The correct suggestion should be, whether the trance I achieve is light or medium or deep, I'm going to get rid of, mention your difficulty, as soon as I possibly can. Do not lay down conditions. One of the main reasons for the resistance of your unconscious mind to trance induction is because individually you try to force your unconscious mind. The way to deepen trances, and one of the ways in which unconscious resistances are overcome, is to make the right suggestions with gentle persistence. Do this and the trance will become deeper by itself. If you try to force matters, you will arrive at a deadlock. A very light trance can be created by simply closing the eyes and mentally counting up to 10. Given the right conditions, this trance will become progressively deeper. But if immediately after the 10, the individual says to him or herself, "I am not in a trance, I am wide awake," you automatically brush aside what would have developed into a trance. If instead of making the above mental comment to yourself, you had mentally noted a heaviness in your arms or your legs, referred to the relaxation exercises given earlier, and you mentally said, "I believe my arms are getting heavier, and my breathing seems a little deeper." And if I had continued in this strain, my light trance would have become progressively deeper. I met a man in India who performed some very impressive feats, and I commented on the ease and speed with which he induced a trance in himself. I was surprised by his telling me that it was 7 years from the time he first tried to induce a trance before he succeeded. The reason for his taking this long time was because at his first attempt, he had an expectation of being able to create a trance in a few sessions. When he failed to induce a trance fairly quickly, he was disappointed and lost heart and gave up his attempts for a long time. For some years, he tried at intervals without success to induce a trance until he realized that his failure was because he had unthinkingly been making negative suggestions to himself, and he had not been systematically practicing, but had simply been carrying out delusory experiments when he felt like it. Once he began to practice regularly, he soon succeeded. Sometimes, as in the case of the man I just mentioned, a student may come to a standstill and know not why. It may be that he or she has encountered some form of unconscious resistance or for some other reasons. It is not possible in a general course of this nature to give precise instructions in every case, but if you make the progress your efforts merit and care to write, giving brief details to me, I will be pleased to advise the best steps to take to overcome your difficulty. With the majority of people, deepening trance is a gradual process, but with patience and perseverance, most resistances gradually resolve themselves. One cause of resistance to trance induction is that the unconscious mind takes exception to the nature of the suggestions made by yourself. And by your conscious mind. Often by altering your suggestions, your unconscious resistance is overcome. For example, suppose a man is behind his work and is overworking. If he begins to make suggestions to overcome feelings of fatigue and he is already drawing too deeply on his reserves of energy, his unconscious mind will veto his suggestions, and he will have an unconscious resistance to trance and hypnotic suggestion. If this type applies to any student, you will find the solution by reading the recommendations in an earlier part of this course on how the cooperation of your unconscious mind can be obtained by framing the suggestions in such a way that they will be approved both by your conscious and your unconscious mind. One method of trance deepening is to write down a description of the experiences of sinking into a trance. You can call on your imagination to aid yourself here. Describe your feelings in drifting off into sleep and incorporating some of the suggestions which I shall give soon. This is an elaboration of what has been described as feedback method. The reason for the compiling the material yourself is that you will be your own hypnotist, your own experiences in your own words. The following are suggestions on the lines on which these self-suggestions are to be prepared. I am sitting in a chair. My body feels heavy. I am feeling very tired. I don't want to make any effort of any kind. I feel drowsy and relaxed. This drowsiness is becoming deeper. My eyes are closed. I feel lethargy stealing over me. My thoughts are becoming slower and slower. It is just as though I were going to sleep. However, I will be able to hear everything that goes on. My breathing is becoming slower, quieter, and deeper. My whole system feels rested. My eyes feel very heavy. Emotionally, I feel in a quiet, pleasant, contented state. I am physically and mentally completely relaxed. My legs are becoming heavier and heavier. My body, back, and shoulders are relaxed. I have no desire to do anything. I'm not going to do nothing except rest and let this drowsiness become deeper and deeper. If you have difficulty in memorizing, confine yourself to short, simple repetitions. The reason for writing out the suggestions is to assist in remembering them. It is not necessary to be word perfect if the general theme expressed is one of deep relaxation. Select from the foregoing methods of induction the one from which you have experienced the best results. The next step is, when the maximum trance depth has been achieved, to employ the memorized material in the form of self-suggestions. Take care that the clothing worn is loose-fitting and comfortable, and that you have bare feet or comfortable shoes or slippers. It may be found helpful to have a light covering, a traveling rug or quilt spread over you to ensure that there are no drafts so that you are not cold. Pay particular attention to the temperature of the room, and if necessary, see that it is reasonably warm beforehand and that it is not drafty. Arrange as far as you can that before the sessions there has been no abnormal expenditure of energy, that you have not been drawing deeply on your reserves of nervous energy. The purpose of this instruction is, if possible, to ensure that your level of nervous energy is not depleted or below normal, as this tends to increase tension. Some people find that to take off their shoes and place a hot water bottle at their feet is conducive to a trance. But by making these physical arrangements for comfort, the risk of going into sleep is increased. A warm bath is very helpful, but with some people it will create the wrong conditions for trance induction. It is not possible to give specific instructions which will be a guide to everyone. Each individual reacts in a different way, in consequence of which the student is advised to make a close and detailed study of your own reactions. By self-observation, you may possibly detect many small circumstances which will, without your knowledge, have been mildly disturbing you. For example, one student who practiced his exercises in the late evening had failed to make an headway beyond light trance, and discovered that when he left off drinking tea in the evening, the tension which he had previously experienced vanished immediately. I recommend you, the student, to study very closely all circumstances and actions which are likely to influence your attempts. If the trance state goes too deep, the student will only become aware of this when he awakens, There is no record of or evidence of anyone ever experiencing any inconvenience through self-induced trance. If whilst carrying out this exercise you enter a deep trance or fall fast asleep, you must at the next session induce a medium trance in which you do not allow yourself to sink down too deeply, and direct suggestions to prevent yourself from losing control. These suggestions should be on the following lines. I am sinking down into a trance, but I will not go to sleep, nor will I lose consciousness. I will be aware of any noises which go on outside, but they will not disturb me, and I will hear them all the while. The object of my practice and exercises is to implant suggestions in my unconscious mind, and so that I shall be able to do this, I must not lose consciousness or go to sleep. It cannot be repeated too often that to affect alterations in oneself, it is not necessary to hypnotize oneself. This course teaches you all the alterations which can be brought about in a self-induced trance. It can be achieved through self-suggestions. The following exercise in disorientation is helpful in increasing depth of trance. It can be practiced as a preliminary to a suggestion session. A darkened room. This preliminary exercise is to be carried out in total darkness. Complete darkness is employed in the training of insanguiners and many other mystics. In these cases, the nature of the trance is different, for it becomes possible to open the eyes without disturbing the trance. This is somnambulism. To reach this state, a great deal of time and practice is necessary. It is difficult to maintain a delicate balance between either going off into unconsciousness and sleep, or alternatively to become roused and alert. Practice this exercise in a completely darkened room. Experiment by walking about with a short stick in your hand and finding the way by touching objects with the end of the stick, and very rapidly you will experience the sensations that you are feeling with the end of the stick. This is the beginning of a sensory extension. After you have carried out this experiment with both hands, lie down with your eyes closed and place a forefinger gently on your eyelid and very, very gently apply pressure. If you move your finger when you touch certain spots, you will probably see some flashes of light, possibly colored lights. This is caused by pressure on the optic nerve and is to be carried out very gently indeed. Don't poke yourself in the eyes too hard and go blind. Now, remove your hands and mentally concentrate in the mind's eye, trying to revisualize the flashes of light, without, of course, in any way touching your eyes. Keep your eyes closed while you are doing this. These vague, shadowy off lights, which are seen sometimes when the eyes are closed, are the raw material out of which mental images are formed. They can also be formed by concentration. Turn your attention to try to build up images of the numeral 1. See it like the number 1 on a blackboard. That is, as a white figure against a blackboard ground. When you have seen this, even if it is only vague, cancel it out and make the number 2 appear. Cancel this and continue creating each number up to 10. The purpose of this exercise is not only of mental control, but it also produces a disorientation, and it will be found as a result of this and the following trance deepening exercises that the depth of your trance will be improved. For this trance deepening exercise, lie down with your arms at your sides and close your eyes. Do not try to create a trance, but simply imagine a point moving round the outlines of your body. Begin at the crown of your head and imagine the point moving down the side of your head, tracing the outline of your ear, then down the side of your neck, along your shoulder, down the outside of your arm until you come to the top of your little finger. Then, trace the line in between your fingers around your thumb, up the inside of your arm to your armpit, and then continue tracing the outline of your body until you have returned to the crown of your head, and continue with trance deepening suggestions.